Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start off with our Finance Committee meeting. Would everybody please rise and join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Mrs. Pilati?
Good evening. Okay, so our treasurer's report is for both our district and our extracurricular for the month of April, and that's in our first tab. We have our payroll summary for the month of May and our financial statements for the month of April. Our internal claims report from Pat is for the month of May, and our system manager trail from Joe Ferrucci is for the month of May as well. Our payroll certifications are from May 15th and May 29th. We also have all of our warrants that were done for the month. We have budget transfers and donation from New York, actually from the Association of School Business Officials for $500. That was going to be a scholarship for a deserving high school student. We have approval of bids as listed on the agenda here. They vary for various different things throughout the district that's needed. They're not bond related, it's just regular district services. We also had an approval of a bid. We are putting up for approval tonight, approval of a bid rejection. And we have several contracts for 2020-21. Does anyone have any questions on any of the agenda items?
Hey, Lisa, this is Pete. I just had one question, and you may
Sure.
be covering it. First of all, great job with the budget and all the finances for next year. I know we cut out about 1.4 million in the budget. Do we have a detailed itemization of that and how we kind of did that? And you can send it to me
Yes.
another time.
Yep. Actually, each time I had sent the board a draft budget, along with that draft was a summary of changes. So I'm not sure if you recall, but it said like draft 1 to draft 2 of the budget, and then there was a listing of all of those items that actually showed the reductions on how we reduced the budget. So every budget code that was hit.
Great.
I could resend them to the board though, if you'd like.
That's perfect, because I know there was some savings with summer schools, the clubs, the sports from the
Yeah.
spring.
Several. And then we had one of the versions, there was all of the retirements, because some of them were known later in like draft 2, I believe, of the budget. So if
Great.
you'd like, I can send all of those sheets. This way you have a summary of all of the changes from the beginning of the budget process to the end.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. I did not have a discussion item on the agenda, but I would like to add one because I just received word today from Bond Counsel that our bonds did go to sale today, the $40 million bond. Let me just back up for a minute. And we do have some good news. So we sold the $40 million bonds to FHN Financial Capital Markets was the winner. And at a pretty low rate, which is really great for the district, a true interest rate cost, because with bonds, we go by the true interest rate cost of 1.49%, which is a wonderful rate for us. And when we had budgeted in this process, of course, you know, when you have to budget for $40 million bonds, we use our financial advisors to assist us with that process. We had budgeted at 1.74%. So we will see a savings next year because our budget was a little higher than what came in at the actual rate of the sale today. So that's good news for the district and will definitely help our budget next year. I don't have the exact number of savings yet because I do not have an updated debt service schedule yet, but I will get that probably early next week. I'm just reviewing the operating statement and everything that has to go back out to Bond Counsel. So I just got that information in this afternoon and I wasn't able to add it to the agenda, but I did want to just bring that up as a discussion point for everybody.
Great news.
Yep. Does anyone have any other questions?
Good news.
Okay. I think that's all we have for finance.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, James.
Good evening, everyone. I also want to welcome Wayne DeMarzo. He's on the Zoom tonight. So Wayne, thanks for being here.
Hello, Wayne.
Um,
Welcome,
Hello,
Wayne.
everybody.
Welcome, Wayne.
Hello, Wayne.
so I'm assuming that you got the bond update summary for the summer of 2020. That took us through everything phase 4B and also phase 5. So that's a long list of work that's happening this summer. Some of that work was designed last year and some was designed more recently, but it's all getting done as we speak and started. Some of those jobs, though, are being impacted by COVID. So some of the manufacturing facilities have been backed up with some of the orders. It didn't affect everything. In fact, thankfully, it didn't affect much. But some of the things that are impacted are some important things like the planetarium. So the planetarium would be delayed probably until November, even possibly not open until early December. So we're working on plans to, not me, but the administrative team is working on plans for how to handle the classes that might not get into that room in time to start the school year. The big holdback really is the dome. The dome is about 2 months behind on the manufacturing, but nothing else can be done in the room until the dome is installed. So the flooring, the seating, the paints, everything, the lighting, the sound system, the whatever, that's on delay because of that. We're doing what we can to get the manufacturer to speed us up a little bit, but that might not change the big picture. So the planetarium is a big one. The other one is some of the casework and furniture that might be needed. Thankfully, not the vanities and sinks for the classrooms. That should be on schedule. So that should not be delayed for September. But the Udall Family and Consumer Science Room, that might have furniture delayed on that project. Also, bathroom work we're doing has doors that might be delayed with the hardware or the doors into late August, which could impact the first day of school. But we're trying to change vendors with who the subcontractors are, and we'll do everything we can to get it done on time. And if we have to put temporary things in, like partitions between toilet stalls or something, we'll come up with a way to make it work. So the COVID, the other COVID impact is the way the contractors work. They're requiring the workers to wear masks and have certain activities where they're separate on distancing. But it's not greatly impacting them because they already took certain precautions anyway. The outdoor work, like the site work, we're moving forward with all that. And we have been, thankfully, you've all approved some of that to continue a month and 2 months ago. So that's all moving along nicely. One of the jobs that's a big impact, depending on what we do with graduation, is the Lions Path site work with the booth and the sidewalk and the fencing and the paving. Also, the turf field carpet replacement. So if we have graduation on the 26th, then those 2 jobs are really going to kickstart right after that, the Monday following it. But if we're not sure about the graduation on the 26th and it goes into July, then we really want to start replacing the turf field now. So I know it's an unknown right now. It's in discussion, and you'll see how that goes. So we'll react accordingly, whether we start or later. The progress sheet you got has some other things listed on there, like the water fountains and some blinds and all that work that's going to be going on, cement pads and the dust collection, all the mechanical work. Everything is on schedule. If it's delayed, these are not things that will delay the ability to start school. So if we have an issue with roof exhaust fans or mechanical things, like we have a dust collector for the wood shop, if that doesn't get finished in time, accommodations will have to be made. But right now, it doesn't look like everything will be slowed down for that. One quick comment about the blinds. Last year, the phase 4B work included replacing all the classroom blinds. It did not include offices and the nurse's office and places like that. We're trying to see if some of the existing blinds that were installed in 2001 and 2002 are in such good condition that they might stay. And then we would substitute those locations for the non-instructional, non-classroom spaces to get new blinds. Anyway, we're working with that now. It might come out to be an even swap, but if not, we'll come to you for an allowance or change order for a few more blinds if you want to consider that for all the offices, because the original scope of work was just instructional. All the bathroom replacements, that's a big job across the whole district. It's at least 4 or 6 bathrooms in every building. They're being shut down this week as far as the water supply. That'll continue all summer, and we expect them all to be completed before school openings. That's the bulk of the impact for COVID-related work. Another thing, this morning we met with an engineer that specializes in pools and pool liners. I know this is an old topic, it never goes away, but the liner is not doing well. It does the job, but it's not a perfect solution. You might recall that we were hoping to get 10 years out of it, then make a decision later because the cost of that liner was 10% of a full retile job, which would have been $500,000 instead of $50,000. But this morning, when looking at the liner, we realized that we might have to offer the installer, or ask them to do a 1-year extension on the warranty, make additional repairs, and we'll evaluate it for another year. Not great news, but the kids can swim. It doesn't impact the ability to use the pool, just not a perfect solution. I'll get more answers from BBS after their engineer gets back to them from what we found this morning. Everything else is going okay. This summer, we're going to put the salt generator in, which is a salt chlorinator really, and all the other mechanical improvements. So that's on schedule too. The ramp in the back of the high school, all that work was done. The railings still need to be finished. The good news is you also approved some additional expenses to do stamped concrete. It's all finished. It looks beautiful. You might want to take a look at it. The doorway into the boys' gym is not done yet. That's waiting on some hardware that's delayed by COVID. But once that comes in, they'll cut the opening into the gym, so we'll have a way in there from a ramp. So that was it on that. Any questions on it?
All good.
All right. The second topic was the Department of Labor violations. That was a PESH inspection, public employees, safety and health inspection, and they only looked at 2 areas in the district. They found a few things to improve upon. We identified all of them. Wayne, if you don't mind, if you could jump in with some comments if you like, because I know you worked pretty hard to get some of those resolved.
Sure. We had some minor violations that we had to write up a plan and post it in a book in the site. The other major violations, we took care of pretty much 99% of them already. By the time we got done with this week, we should have just about all of them completed. The plans that we have to submit, get approved, and get back, and once that's done, we'll be all set. We'll have everything taken care of, James.
What were the violations?
With some of the minor violations were there were a couple of snow blowers stored in front of a electric panel. We had some gas cans that weren't DOT approved, so we replaced those. Some of the major violations that we took care of were circuit breakers not in place, some power tools that weren't fixed to the workbench.
Wayne, list
yeah.
here, all so you know. But if you want me to read through a few more of them,
Yeah.
There was a power cord that was frayed a little bit.
Mhm.
There was a missing guide on the grinder. We needed an additional set of leg protection in case we do chainsaw work. So it's the things like Wayne was talking about, a few more that I mentioned. And the other ones that were more administrative is we had to establish a better communication for the hazardous materials so that we have a better training protocol so they know what to do with the materials and the SDS sheets. But everything on the list so far that was due for June 15th is completed for both the areas. And the only things left really is that we have to clarify something about N95 masks with the workers, and also an injury and illness log report for a few years. Everything else is resolved up until, including those things that are not due until the end of August. So we're in good shape with that.
Thank you.
All right, the next topic was the summer building and facility permits. I'll start with just mentioning that we got a request from the swim club to allow lifeguard training, which initially I was considering to recommend we might allow because they had restricted themselves down to 4 swimmers and very good regulations. But we got a notice from the Department of Health that says the pools are closed until further notice. So it's empty right now. We were in the bottom of it this morning, so it's not full of water. Also, it's-
Excuse me, James, may I just comment on that, just so you're aware? Today, evidently, and I didn't watch the news conference today because they just aggravate me, but the governor stated that he was about to open playgrounds and pools. And I'm not sure, and of course, he's speaking to the state. I'm not sure where we are in that as far as the phased opening of Long Island. County Executive Islip Supervisor Carpenter met with the Islip cluster yesterday, and one of the things she shared was that it does not appear that Islip Town will be opening their pools anytime soon. Once I found out about the governor's statement today, I did send a clarification email to Tom Bowles so we can determine where we are in that process and whether that's possible or not, because we have received requests for, obviously, community to use our pool. So we don't have an answer on that right now, but we are on top of it. We realize it's a hot commodity. Thanks, James, sorry.
Also, the Department of Health notice that we received indicated that outdoor pools can open with a bunch of requirements, but indoor pools have to be closed. So I want to clarify that. So we're closed. Now, even if we had been able to accommodate them, we would have been draining it in July anyway for all the mechanical work. And it would have been empty until mid-August or early August at best. So that's still going to happen. So we have it closed right now for the next 2-3 weeks for COVID reasons and the Department of Health. But then we have it empty anyway, all the way till the mid-August for the work that's got to be done. So any questions about the pool are going to be, no, it's closed till mid-August. And at that point, our teams, if they're allowed to begin preseason work, would start around then anyway. So that's the plan so far with it. Camps. So the buzz is starting to happen where groups are thinking they can consider coming back with camps. I'm sure all the athletic groups and many other camps. We already did turn down Islip Town Camp because of the construction, so that's not happening. One request we got, I don't know if it's more of a request more than it might have been for our information, and that's the Higbee Lane Center that runs the YES program. It's a town program. They're going to run this summer, and they use the back fields behind the field, and that field is ours. So they were notifying us that they're running their camp with protocols for COVID, and that backfield will be used as well during the day. So I don't know if we want to take the position that we want to determine if they can or can't do that, but I want to inform you that's happening. My concern about that is if they do use the field, the next step is community members are going to come back and say, if they can use the field, why can't we use the field? On the same field even, for whether it's, athletic, sports, or other camps. So that's FYI.
Are we not allowed to let them use it, do you know?
As far as
Who authorizes that? The town?
from what I understand, it's made, that decision is made per district, as long as they follow the protocols that the state's giving, as far as number of people and distancing and all that. But I don't believe the state has said we cannot use fields. It's just that how they're used. But again, I don't want to claim to be an expert on that yet.
Are we not
No,
having
but-
it? Are we not having of the sports camps now? Is that been determined?
Yeah, there's no
That is
camps right.
correct.
Nothing's approved inside or outside of the buildings.
Okay, and we think that'll stay in effect? Is that from New York State, or we just,
I
We made it-
I don't
Yes.
know what, I don't know what phase 3 might bring, but right now our status is we're not accepting permits for any of the fields any summer activity.
So they're pushing, obviously, the various sections in New York State. Phys Ed is pushing real hard to get some of these variations to the orders, addressed. But I checked with Tim Horan just this week, and I also checked with Section, and we're not in a position yet to open the fields to the camps or to any other athletic activities. We're still supposed to be following social distancing. Of course, there's a lot of conflicting information right now, and some advocacy efforts to get these athletic camps up and running. And then you have the group saying, well, if you could have kids going to athletic camp, why can't they graduate together? That's much more controllable. So there's all of these different variables going on, but as of right now, we are not supposed to be providing the fields for that purpose.
But who issues the permit or gives them authorization to use the Higbee Field?
We do, correct, James?
We do. We
We
do. I-
can, so I think what I just heard is we cannot issue them a permit.
Right, so how do we issue them a permit?
That's my understanding. It's not a town field, it's our field.
Right, we own the property. So I don't see how we're issuing them a permit and nobody else.
Okay, so we'll go back and notify them that the field use is not allowed right now. So we cannot,
Yeah, if that's the regulation, that's the regulation.
Or it said differently, we're not allowed to issue them a permit, so they can't use the field.
okay?
And I would just like to say this changes, as you all know, weekly. You know, early last week, no special education in person. By Friday night, special education in person. So
Right.
this is a constantly evolving situation, and we'll stay on top of it. But you're right, for consistency's sake, I think we need to be
And I
consistent.
think the confusion is because last week they announced that you could have day camps open, right? In New York State, so this doesn't apply to that. Is that?
No, they can run their day camp, but I guess the question is, if they need to use other facilities beyond their own, what is the implication to those other facilities? And I think we should probably get clarification, and I'll follow up with our school council tomorrow on that as well.
Okay, that's all the items on the agenda, unless anyone has questions about something else. I'll quickly mention that the summer cleaning, we're getting an early jump on it, which is nice. For all the summer work that we normally complete. There's some minor roadblocks, I would call, or obstacles, and one of them is all of the staff members that normally take vacation in March, April, and May and June didn't. So now they have to take that time now. So we have some significant absences, which means that we don't truly have 3 months of cleaning. We have maybe 2.5 if you want to look at it that way. Still enough time that we'll get the job done for September. I'm not worried about that. Also, we did do the fire inspections last month. They went very well. The fire marshal understood that it was unique times we're in, and we have all the list of changes and improvements to make. We did all that. Everything's complete, so we're in good shape.
Okay.
That's all I got.
James, what's going on with the solar project? I know, did that go over? Are they starting that analysis?
Yes, we went through the process you know about, which is selecting the company. We're down to that point now. I think that there was a referendum signed, I think, it's going to be, to formally select them. They are now in the process of putting together their I'll say their exact design plan versus the general design plan for the pricing. The timeline looks like next spring is probably when they would break ground and start putting panels on roofs, if things go the way they should with financing and approval and all those steps. So really not a lot is going to happen that we can see for the next 8 months probably, but it's in motion now with Noresco.
James, it'll take that long to actually see those numbers from them, like that everything correlates and stuff, and we want to go forward with them, or actually.
I think there's a
Might
step.
see that sooner, right?
Yeah, there'll be a step that happens probably around October, November, where you see the exact design plan and you get a sense of the exact dollar figures. Elisa, if you know more, correct me where I'm wrong, but that's around the time that they'll see that. And then construction, once we approve that, then they would award the work to some contractor to do the work and order all the materials, which would take 4 or 5 months to get everything and start putting it in. So spring is around when we expect possibly the installation, and they'll move quickly. They're saying in a couple months or a few months, they'll bang through every building, put them all up. So that'll be nice. Oh, the other part of that is we originally did not ask for proposals that included carports, the metal structures outside that have solar panels on the top. And we did that so that we would have an apples to apples or an oranges to oranges comparison and not complicated by structure costs. But now that we've selected the company, if they want to come back with proposals that might include those, I said we're willing to consider them. So come October or so, if we have some design ideas that we could share with you that you might consider in some of the parking lots, well, then we'll weigh those options when we get them. Just an idea.
How did we account for the project in the budget, if at all?
We didn't actually account for the budget in the project because when you go out for an EPC, it would take, the first payment would be due a year later, so it really
Okay.
wouldn't affect anything until the following year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
On the topic quickly of the budget for next year versus this year, we did a few things. We got a jump start on a few things this year. We just completed recently, or we're about to. One of them is we did the high school epoxy floor in the high school shop, the auto shop. Came out beautiful. That was something we were trying to do maybe next year, and we got a jump start. It did this year. And also the auditorium at Udall, we're putting new, refinishing the painted floor in the auditorium, and also new carpeting. And that's it.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Okay. How about education?
Good evening, everybody. Mrs. Dowling recently submitted the required biannual district plan for special education students. An overview of the plan was provided to the Board of Education Special Education Committee on Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. The plan overviews the continuum and scope of services available for our special education students. It also provides information related to the professional staff that provide such services, data related to the special education budget, and other relevant information related to the education of West Islip special education students. Everybody did receive a copy of the plan in your backup. Approximately 72 special education students have met the criteria for extended year services. A virtual program is currently in place to address their learning needs. The district is awaiting notification as to whether or not West Islip students can attend in-person extended year services provided by the placements indicated on their IEPs. While we are awaiting that notification, Mrs. Dowling and Ms. Doherty are in the process of creating a plan to provide in-person extended year services for our students as delineated in the IEPs. As soon as the plan for those students are finalized, parents will be notified.
Hold on a second, Dawn. I just have some questions here.
Yep.
So you're waiting for the notifications from who?
Yeah, so we're waiting for the various BOCES services that provide our kids with the services such as Comac, such as Sequoia, Sayville Elementary, Prem
Okay,
Learning Center.
So are we still possibly sending kids out to other districts, or are they not accepting our?
We are awaiting guidance. We have not received final responses back from all of the places that our students go. So Jean is working on that. So we are currently waiting.
So if they do not accept out of district students, then is there a secondary plan for services for the summer?
Jean and Gail are in the process of working on a way for our students to receive in-person summer services, yes.
So can we conceivably have classes in West Islip? Is that on the table?
Bernadette, did you want to speak to that or?
Well, so what we've done, Emery, is of course, we recognize the value of face-to-face contact with the students. We are having some difficulty getting enough teachers to run that program. It's pretty substantial. We have to run a number of classes. So we need, I think, five teachers, a speech therapist, behavior therapist. I believe it was 14 aides, a nurse on site, and a school administrator. But
So that
we
would
have
be,
gone ahead.
so that would be our staff. We would try and offer summer
Yes.
program, summer.
Yes,
summer
yes. So
work
we've
to.
gone, yes, so we've
And-
already taken the steps to post it. Mrs. Dowling has already taken the steps because we are not an approved service provider for a summer program. She has already submitted an application in that regard.
So we have to be approved by the state in order to
Yes.
run our own
Yes.
summer school, even
Yes.
though we're a school.
Correct.
So we typically send our, and I just want clarification for everybody, because I know that there are a lot of questions out there on this. So we typically send our students to a variety of different summer programs, not in West Islip, and we do not run our own summer in-person classes. Correct? Right?
That
For
is
some,
correct.
yes,
Okay.
we do have a limited in-district program that we run for some of our students, but for the majority of them, they do go out
Right.
to other placements.
Right, right. So we're first exploring those options, if other
Yes.
districts are even running program, because it's all up to school districts. And they also get to say whether they're going to accept West Islip students into the
Correct.
program. And so if that runs into a wall, we're going to attempt to run our own program. However, we would have to then hire our own teachers
Yes,
and give them space in our buildings to do in-person classes.
Mhm.
And I assume then that those programs would then have to be modified in order to meet the safety protocols that are currently in place for COVID. So size of
Correct.
classes and all the PPE and mask wearing and all that has to be accounted for.
correct.
Okay. And so the timeline for knowing that again is what?
Well,
Like
Mrs.
June-
Dowling
June-
did sub,
It would be like after the 4th of July, right? Like June 6th, you would be looking to start?
it really all depends on the guidance that we receive right now. Some summer services are scheduled to start as of July 1st, but depending on the road we go down, we may have to adjust that date.
Mhm.
Mrs. Dowling and Ms. Doherty did compile the plan and submitted it to the state yesterday. So
Okay.
we are waiting to hear back from them while we continue to wait to hear back from the other programs.
Okay, and if we cannot get teachers to come in and teach over the summer, then where are we? Do we go and hire outside teachers or substitute teachers, or are we just done? We hit a black brick wall and we can't go any further?
We did talk about this at the Special Education Committee meeting yesterday about posting to OLAS. Obviously, the preference would be to have our teachers so that our students are familiar with them.
Mhm.
But should it be necessary, we could post the positions to OLAS.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on to AP exams, just an update, 579 AP exams were recently taken over a 2-week period by our high school students. Approximately 30 students encountered some type of technical difficulty with the submission of their exams. This was on the AP College Board end of things. The 30 students that had issues in West Islip experienced similar issues to those of students nationwide, and Mr. Gilmartin collaborated with the College Board to resolve all of those issues to the satisfaction of the parents and the students. So as of today, I think we're in really good shape, and I just want to give a shout out to our students and teachers who went through the exam process, because the first time through in an unfamiliar procedure, they did a really great job. So thank you to the students and the teachers for working through that together. An elementary, middle school, and high school instructional planning committee. They've been established subject to guidance from the state education department for the various instructional scenarios that we may be facing throughout next school year. The committees are comprised of teachers and staff members from the various grade levels and buildings. The committees will meet on a regular basis throughout the coming weeks to make sure that we have a solid plan in place for next year. And we are certainly going to utilize input from our teachers, from our parents, from our students, from challenges that we faced throughout the last few months to make sure that we have the best plan in place as possible.
Okay, so you see, I'm popping in, so you know I have.
Like
questions.
that.
Once you see my face, you know that we're going to pause and we're going to talk about this a little bit
So
more.
you know
Okay.
she's awake.
I'm here, I'm here. So you formed volunteer committees to come together and talk about the COVID-19 issues in terms of how we're going to educate our children.
Yes,
And my understanding is that we have to send a plan up to the state sometime in June or July?
July.
July, is there like a hard date on that or just July?
I believe right now they're saying some point in mid-July, but in order for us to create the plan, we are awaiting guidance from the education department.
And Emery, if I might interject, I was one of 2 superintendents from Suffolk County invited to sit on the committee. And the first meeting is June 24th. So if that gives you any indication about a timeline, that's where they are right now.
It's very concerning to me.
Yes, we agree.
That June 24th is the first time that you're going to meet with other people to talk about September, because in the education world, we all know that you're already late.
Yeah.
You're already late with any changes that you need to implement or make, or decisions that you're going to do for September for going back to school.
Well, we are moving forward, and I think that for the most part, much of the guidance is pretty clear, and I'm confident that we will be in good shape, but that's where we are as a state right now.
Okay, so once you submit the plan to state ed, I guess state ed is taking all these plans. There's not, one plan for every school district. It's 172 plans. Is that right? Like West Islip can opt to do something totally different than Bayshore or Babylon?
I think there's a recognition that we all need to be somewhat on the same page. We need to be following the same protocols if something throws a wrench into what we're doing. So I think that is the nature of the state gathering to come up with some similar guidance, but just as anything else in curriculum and instruction, each district has its own culture and its own way of implementation, and I think you will see the same thing here. Some guardrails, but each individual district will do its own thing.
So is it something that needs to be negotiated with the bargaining units, or is it basically, this is what we're doing? Will there be executive orders that kind of speak to what we have to do? Like, for example, all the colleges are coming out now with how they're going to manage their fall semesters, right? Many of them are starting mid-August to bring students back. They're forgoing all of their vacation time and their holiday breaks. They're having classes on Saturdays in order to make the criteria, make the time so that they can hit November 20th and dismiss for Thanksgiving and finish the semester online before flu and cold season hits. Good plan. I mean, but it's a plan, right? So are we thinking outside of the box in those ways in order to actually educate our children?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I was muted.
That's okay.
I think we're exploring every possibility
Okay.
right now, but we do need some guidance from the Department of Health and from the state.
And when are our internal committees starting to meet, Dawn? When are they?
Next week. I'm actually meeting with both elementary and secondary curriculum council next Tuesday and Wednesday, and I am meeting with the instructional planning committee on Thursday. I was just looking to give it a little bit more time because I'm hoping that before our first meeting, we will have some additional guidance from the state so that we don't spin our wheels.
Okay, so just administrators and teachers on those committees?
Correct,
No
yes.
community members, nothing like that? No input from any other stakeholders except for teachers and administrators?
We have teachers and administrators.
And Amory, there'll be a separate task force from the possibility. We're in the process right now of breaking everybody up. We have over 80 members that we're going to introduce to the administrators tomorrow, and then we're going to be rolling that out to everybody over the course of the next week. They are investigating other areas besides the instructional piece. The pure curriculum and instruction stays with the council, but some of these other models will be explored by that task force. So there's more information coming on that.
We did receive some very effective and purposeful feedback from parents in that parent survey that was sent out several weeks ago. And we have been compiling the feedback that parents have shared via email and via telephone calls throughout this process. So that information will be utilized as we go through this process.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions about this? I mean, I can't be the only one, right? Okay, I guess I am. Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Okay, the Dimensions Math program, which is currently being utilized in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, will expand into fourth grade for next school year. 4 professional development sessions have been scheduled for the fourth grade teachers between now and the start of September. The sessions will provide background knowledge in regard to the philosophy of the program and its support of the standards. It will familiarize our teachers with the materials and resources necessary to effectuate the program, and it will provide teachers with an opportunity to ask questions and share ideas in regard to the program. The first session was today, and the feedback that I'm receiving was that the teachers found it effective. So we're looking forward to those future sessions. The Little Lions program at the high school provides opportunities for the students in our early childhood education classes to interact with the preschool students 3 days a week throughout the school year. It also provides our preschool children in the community with an opportunity to attend a preschool program. The program typically starts in October and concludes in May. Due to the ongoing uncertainties posed by the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact that it may have on our classrooms and building environments, the start of the Little Lions program has been postponed until further notice. Again, we are waiting to see what type of restrictions we are going to be under in our classrooms and our buildings. And as soon as more information is available on when we can start the program, it will be publicized on the district website. Elementary and Secondary Curriculum Council members recently met to discuss the summer activities that are typically provided to our K-12 students throughout the summer in order to keep them engaged in the educational process. It was agreed upon that due to the last few months and the stress and the upheaval that the pandemic has caused, that we needed to make some adjustments to those programs. So this summer, the activities posted are going to be suggested. They are going to be optional. Choice boards are going to be provided to our K through 5 students. That looks something like this, where kids can go on and they can find some type of fun activity or choice to take part in that helps them to think, to be creative, and to just keep those reading and math skills going. As far as the reading, that too is going to be optional. No work is going to be collected in the summer, but teachers will be providing students with an opportunity to share out what their summer learning experience was, should they choose to do it. The summer activities will be posted on the district website by the end of next week. And in regard to the Chromebooks that we distributed at the elementary level throughout the pandemic, we are allowing those Chromebooks to stay with our elementary students throughout the course of the summer. And we will be providing them with access to RazKids, Reflex Math, and IXL, which is a math program, should they or their parents wish to engage in reading and math activities throughout the months of July and August. Thank you.
Dawn, I'm going to make Anne Marie happy and go back to the instructional planning for the fall.
Okay.
Is part of the planning, does part of the planning include what happens if we wind up on shutdown again?
Yes. What happens if we are in school on Wednesday and if on Thursday we have to close down? How can we seamlessly transition, you know, our students to learning on Thursday? That is one of the parts of the plan that we are talking about.
And to answer Anne Marie's question, depending on what that looks like, there may be reason or maybe not to negotiate pieces of that instructional plan. We don't know yet.
We'd like to build something fluid because it may be a fluid process. We may be in school for a month or two, and we may be out of school for a week or so, depending, and we would like to try to make that instruction as seamless as possible.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to be in a position where, you know, weeks are shot again, months.
Correct.
However it may be.
Dawn, this is Pete. No,
Hi, Pete.
I get that we're waiting for, you know, all the state to come down with regulations for the fall. But is there a way we can at least back into a timeline, starting from the first day of school back, to say, by this time we want to be the plan to be done. By this time, maybe plan A is fully back. Plan B is whatever the regulations are. So just so we're aware of what's going on in terms of when we expect to get the plan at least done. To Anne Marie's point, we're, you know, obviously we're not late because we're waiting on regulations, but it's late in the season.
It is my hope that we will have the plan completed by July. There are several roads that we may have to go down. One is, a pure distance learning plan. Another plan that we may need to consider is a hybrid model with maybe some students in the classroom, some students, in their home setting. And then, of course, what Steve was talking about, a transitional plan where we can, with better ease, go back and forth between the school environment and the home environment. So we are starting to go down those roads, but it is my hope that we will have our plan completed by the end of July at the latest.
Do you think there's a chance that nobody goes back in September and for some reason and we don't start having kids back until, October or something like that?
Only if people make really poor decisions over the course of the summer. I think our goal is to figure out how best to accommodate bringing everybody back. And I think from what I'm hearing from my colleagues, that seems to be, our course of action right now. But if people make poor choices between now and, the middle of August, Rich, we very well may end up where we are right now, which would be really unfortunate.
Right.
Children need to go back to school.
Absolutely. And that's the goal.
I agree with Bernadette. I think unless something changes drastically, that we're going to at least start. The question is going to come when, if there's a spike, as the weather turns cooler again.
If we had alternate days, or there's something like alternate days, the kids that are home, is that going to count as like one of their 180 days, or how's that going to work? How would that work?
Well, why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it? It's counting now, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's
Hasn't this past 3 months counted as the 180 days or no?
Yeah, but only because he allowed it.
Well, of course, all of this is going to happen with, it being allowed by SED,
Well-
the governor.
I think you're going to see, from what I understand, a very different response to situations. You're seeing within the county and state structure a real gearing up to isolate and test and track where the disease is at any particular time, so that if, God forbid, there were to be a case that surfaces in a building,
You know
next
how to
time
treat it,
you're not
yeah.
going to see a whole district closed down. You're
Right.
going to see, there's
You're going to
already
see a
guidelines in
classroom
place.
closed down.
You're going to
You'll see a classroom closed
building
down.
for I think
Right.
it's 24, 48 hours, I forget, but it's already in
Yeah.
the guidance. It's already been posted. And you'll see a very different way to address it so that not an entire system is really not servicing its students at a particular point in time.
Right. I agree. I think that's definitely
And
something that the state is looking at.
Dawn, is the,
From my own experience, that's what's going on with me right now.
and Dawn,
No, Dawn.
is the plan going to encompass outside of education, the entire, what the school district looks like come September, from extracurriculars to everything else that goes on? Is that part of this, or is that another committee or another? group
That's the
working on
task
it?
force, Pete, I think that you signed up for.
That's fine.
So we have like 6 or 8 different categories, and that's what they will be exploring.
Okay.
Oh, can we sign up for task force? I didn't know this.
Would you like to do that, Anne Marie? Would you
I'd like
be
to,
on one of the committees?
I'd like to do the education part of it, please. Another thing I wanted to ask was,
Bernadette, can you send us all the, what the different committees are?
Sure, yes.
is there any consideration for parents who want to keep their children home because of concerns and are not comfortable going back to school, that they can opt to do the virtual learning plan and then thus help you lower your density just by virtue of them saying, you know what, I want to learn from home for however long it takes? Like, is there any consideration?
That's the state decision, and that would not be up for us to decide. I do want to caution you that one of the biggest challenges, and those of you working at home with children at home know it, is if kids are staying home for educational purposes, the parent obviously needs to be in the home with them. And if they're
Yes.
following along with what's going on in their class at any point in time, that may or may not work. It's certainly not the ideal environment, But I think that the state really needs to weigh in that regard. And that's where I think we're going to be getting into some contractual issues there. So I really think that's one of those areas, as much as we can move forward and say,
Really? Because that seems like such common sense to me. It just seems like common, and I get what you're saying. It's not an ideal location. They're learning from home. Parents have to be home with them, but it might work in some situations where mom or dad are home. And so they can keep their child home and they can follow along with the classroom material and the learning process, whether it be Skyping into the classroom or doing the online, whatever. And thus lowering the density in the school district just by virtue of them opting to stay home. Like, I don't.
well, the
that
feedback
seems
I'm getting from
common
some of
sense
our
to me.
teachers is it's not the most productive environment
Oh my
all
God.
of the
it's
time.
I get it. It's terrible. I mean, look, it's terrible in aspects that it's better, this is terrible. We're having a meeting like this, right? Always better in-person classes. That's not what I'm saying, right? But under the circumstances that we are at, and maybe this is just a discussion for task force and it's really not meant to discuss here, but in the circumstances that we're at, if you have a family that, I don't know, grandma's, immunocompromised and whatever it may be, and they have the means to stay home and do online instruction with their children under these periods of time, why wouldn't we let them opt to do that and send everybody who can't stay home or does not have the wherewithal to teach their children at home, go back to school, helping you lower the density along the way. To me, it seems common sense.
Sounds logical.
I don't know. Now, maybe, like I said, maybe this is just a discussion for the task force. So.
I think that's one of those areas that we need to await guidance from the state.
Okay.
Because
All right.
they're they're the 180-day gurus up there. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens.
All right. Sounds good.
And Dawn, I know you just, the special ed summer services are up
Mhm.
in the air until you find out. Are there any other summer school services that we need to offer students who didn't pass? What's the plan for that, for just the regular education children who would normally go to summer school?
Well, we're obviously not running a summer school this summer.
They all
Specifically,
passed. Pete.
we're not having Regents
Okay.
exams
Right.
in August.
There were no
So
tests. They all
any-
passed.
Any student that may not have been successful this year would be repeating the class at some other point in the future.
Okay.
I actually saw something on CNBC the other day with China, and they right now with their elementary schools, they have one classroom. They don't at any point switch into like a math class or a reading class or other type of classes. One teacher trying to stop the separating of people, doing into other areas. They're actually doing where when they come in, they have the thermometer reading.
Yes, I saw that.
Are we going to be doing stuff like that? Are we preparing for anything? Can we do anything like that? Like, we don't know what to expect.
You got to take temperature. You have to take temperature when they walk in the building. Everybody's getting their temperature taken. You can't walk into Stop and Shop without getting your temperature taken.
If it was the same thing I was watching, they also sprayed the kids down with something. I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah, they were doing something with spraying down.
They may have learned that from my wife.
And then,
Spraying me with Lysol regularly.
I have plenty of Lysol, so just so you know.
No, I'm saying they walked through a sprayer.
So
What?
I saw that.
Yes.
We are
And they
awaiting.
walked around, they were walking around the hallways, it looked like, with little fire helmets on with face shields.
So we are awaiting DOH guidance in that regard. One of the things for which we've been cautioned is that New York state regulations are not necessarily the same as regulations in Maryland or Pennsylvania or Washington or Minnesota. So we cannot necessarily be counting on making the same purchases and taking the same precautions as other states. So again, this is one of those things where it's hurry up and wait. It's frustrating to all of us. We have proceeded to make purchases in those areas that we know are practical and make sense. But as far as some of those other things that are going on, we can't be doing that. So we just need to take a step back and see what guidance we receive within the next, hopefully, couple of weeks.
Just if it comes to that, we're allowed to take temperatures or required to take temperatures, just everybody needs to keep in mind not to get lulled into a false sense of security over it. I
Yeah,
mean, it's really just going to catch a very small subset of potentially
Yeah.
ill people.
Microscopic, correct. That's one of the reasons that they're not really,
I'm not that high on it
yeah, they're not
personally.
really promoting that right now.
well, we take temperatures all day throughout.
Well, it
the
can't
day.
hurt, but
And there's also a whole list of questions that we have to screen people when they come for, illness. And wash your hands. Wash your hands, everybody. Wash your hands.
Yeah.
Wear a mask. Wear your mask, wash your hands.
Have we
All right.
talked about,
So anybody got anything else for education? Dawn?
Dawn, Bernadette, I got one more question. As far as teachers that are concerned about,
We lost your sound.
We lost
Paul.
you, Paul.
Maybe it's better.
Can probably hear you though.
Paul, we can't hear you.
Paul, text me the question. I'll ask it. We lost your sound. We can't hear you.
you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm not sure why. I'm curious about like if teachers are nervous about coming back, what type of things are we doing about
Right.
getting teachers to replace them and.
Well, everybody's nervous about coming back. And one of the committees is, first of all, one of the committees you'll hear about tomorrow when the update is a health and wellness committee. And another committee is preparing stakeholders for a return to school. So we will be addressing those issues. There are people that cannot be in a situation where they are compromising their health, and we will be addressing that on a case-by-case basis according to the guidelines.
Okay, so we are we're not doing the regular meeting till 8 o'clock, but we have a lot of things for executive. Many of them, much of it involves the lawyers, but some of it doesn't. So we're gonna switch over to exec now. Vern, if you wanna walk them through it, please.
Sure. So we're all going to leave this meeting as we normally would. And then I would ask you to find the link to the executive session meeting, which I think, Brian, you put up about what, for 8:30, 9 o'clock, but we can use that link twice, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So just find the link for executive session for later on, and we will reconvene in a couple of minutes so that perhaps we can speak to some of the items for which we don't need our school attorneys present.
All right.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
The lengthy exec agenda.